Hey gang, Molly here. Welcome to What You're Craving, solo podcast day, one of my most favorite topics. Honest to goodness, like perfectionism is such a killer. It's a killer of all things. It's a killer of joy. It's a killer of excitement. When I went to treatment for my relationships, and when I was sitting in treatment, one of the women was giving us, one of the therapists was giving us a lecture. And she was like, do you want to know a guarantee on how to have a miserable life? Be a perfectionist. And I was like, believe it, Anne, believe it. And it's so true. So that's just like life situation. But if you want to know how to be living in misery and hopelessness in your relationship with food, be a perfectionist. It's interesting because I'm going to talk about this at length today, but it's interesting because actually there's a part where you sort of have to be a perfectionist. So I'm not actually saying, but thinking that your relationship with food is going to be perfect without any lapsing, without any hiccups, is a recipe for misery. And it's a recipe for never, ever, ever getting the freedom that you absolutely deserve when it comes to your relationship with food. It's a big thing. I mean, and also, what does diet culture teach us? Like, do it perfectly for 30 days and then you're good to go. Like, follow this exact plan. I mean, I just so remember too, like back in the diet drama and trauma days, like I really went into all of these diets with just like the greatest intentions. Like I was so earnest. I was like, yes, these shakes. And like, of course, me, like, I'm like, oh, I'll get the package because then I'll really commit to it. So I'd be like $500 in the can, with these shakes. And like, there was no way I was going to be having shakes 14 times a week. Like that was just not going to happen. And I always do remember these moments, like when I'd go to a nutritionist or something and they'd say, just have like the fist of chicken. And of course, like my earnest perfectionist self was like, yeah, totally, fist of chicken, amazing. But like there was this little gnawing voice that was kind of like, that's not enough, like it's not enough food. And like, you're definitely not going to do that. So I love when we talk about this as it is, which is a relationship with food. So I don't know. I need you to think about healthy relationships in your life, not ones you're scared of, not ones you're people pleasing in. But healthy relationships are super imperfect and they have ebbs and they have flows and they have moments of grace and they have moments of messiness where you think, is this really working for me? Is this worth it? And you grow and you change. And I don't know, how do we think that our relationship with food is not going to be exactly the same way? And our relationship with ourselves. I mean, there's only two relationships that you have to be in this world. And one is with food and one is with yourself. So of course that's going to be imperfect. And in that imperfection, and Brene Brown writes a ton about this. So if you want to go get a book on that's way better than the podcast I'm about to give you. Just kidding. I love myself, but this is a really great book. Brene Brown's Gifts of Imperfections, just winner chicken dinner. So we are fed, pun intended, by diet culture to get into this black and white thinking. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm on, I'm off. We get into this rigid perfectionism around our goals, right? And usually the other contributor in this is the scale, which, I can't even get off track because I have so many things I want to talk about today. But usually so often when we say fluff it, when we throw, when we slash the whole experience, a lot of times it's so rooted in a number on a scale and not getting to it or not thinking we should have seen more. It's just, the scale really adds like a new layer of insanity to this perfectionistic mind frame that we have about food. So it was really interesting because I actually was trained in like weight loss. I was trained by like a weight loss person. And, you know, I was really rigid too. And so my life looked like I was really rigid and I was like good. And then I would like go off the radar for a while, be in this like gnarly shaming binge situation. And then, and also I was sort of like that with my clients. Bless you all for letting me treat you. And it wasn't working. And actually, so in dialectical behavioral therapy, they talk about this in the DBT for substance use. So what I want to talk about today is actually indicated for substance use. And I do not need to remind you that substance use is actually something that is optional. And by that, I mean, you can abstain from substance. And yet this, what we call dialectical abstinence, which is, aiming to be perfect, but also negotiating slips. I'll get into it real deep. Don't worry. Is what treatment for substance use is. And you can't stop eating. I mean, this is really where this imperfection and this embracing imperfection really comes in clutch in all of this. Because if you can really radically get on the terms with, you're not going to do this perfectly. I mean, that is not necessarily true. I have met some people in my life and mostly in some of the circles that I sit in, some of the eating disorder group circles that I've sat in my life, where people are saying, yes, I have been perfect for 20 years. Now, this is a judgment. But often I see these people that don't have lives that I want. Their lives are very small. They're bringing, and this may really work for you. I'm just saying my opinion. That's what a podcast is, my opinion. They're like bringing their scale out to dinner. They're like, it's just so rigid. And like, I don't want to live that way. I want to have a colorful, big, beautiful life. And so I've learned how, and through this skill that I'm going to talk to you about today, dialectical abstinence, I've really learned how to have a really awesome and beautiful relationship with food filled with integrity and health, emotional, spiritual, physical health, and live a big life and make errors and learn how to come back to my best self, which is the skill, is an action of self-forgiveness, is an action of self-compassion. And if diet culture has stolen something from us, which it's stolen many things, it's like a Ponzi scheme, how much it's stolen from us, and we don't know. But the capacity to forgive ourselves and the capacity to have compassion for ourselves has been stolen because diet culture has made it moral. Diet culture has made it a moral issue when we make an error, that we're bad or we're not trying hard enough. I believe everybody's doing the best that they can all of the time in every moment. Borrow that from me. Say that to yourself in the mirror every morning. I am doing the best I can in this moment right now. You're going to balk at it. Go say it in the mirror. You're going to balk at it. There's going to be a little part of you that's like, am I? But I don't know if I'm good enough. We got to get rid of that. I mean, I also believe sometimes we need to try harder. But in that every moment, we really are trying our best. And if you walk around with that belief, you're going to binge like a whole lot less. You're going to harm yourself with food or whatever we harm ourselves with, a whole lot less walking around with that belief. So what's so interesting is, like, I am not an intuitive eating person. So I'm not of that mind frame where I'm like, oh, you're struggling with your relationship with food. Just like go and eat what you want and then you'll come back to center. If you know me, you know that that's not my way. I actually am sort of the opposite mind, which is, hey, you have a dysregulated nervous system and a dysregulated endocrine system, and things are messy. And let's bring some chaperones in, and let's bring some guardrails in, and let's get you held for a little bit. And slowly but surely, if you want to, we can get those guardrails off. We can tell the chaperones to go home. Like that's, I think, and especially if you're someone who really struggles with carrying extra weight that you want to release, that needs to be released. Like I think that this is a better way. Intuitive eating almost killed me. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying it really didn't work for me. And I know a ton of people it doesn't work for. And frankly, bringing in guardrails was a life changer for me when I could like surrender and submit to them, honestly. Because the thing is, in my life, I I go back to them when I'm feeling like my relationship with food is a little bit shaky. I just go back to my basics. It's like easy peasy lemon squeezy. So they have this phrase in substance use called the abstinence violation effect. It's actually the fancy way that we say F it, that we say fluff it, and I love this analogy because we are so bonkers with food, with our relationship with food unexamined. We are bonkers. And what I mean by that, can you just think about this with me for a second? Okay. So even let's just use no sugar, no flour. So we've made this decision that this is the problem. We're going to deal with it. And so we're like, okay, I'm not going to eat sugar and flour anymore. And then we're somewhere and we have an emotion or we have a mindless brain fart or, we have a food pusher, something happens and we eat a brownie. I mean, what ends up happening is it's game on. And then we end up eating 17 brownies. And then we go and have ice cream after that. And then we wake up the next morning and we're like, oh, I'm going to have a bacon, egg, and cheese for breakfast. May as well go donuts, fried, whatever, French toast, whatever it is. And the analogy that I love to use in this is it's like we're on the highway and we get a flat tire. And instead of doing something like calling AAA, if you're me, or if you're gifted enough to be able to change a tire, getting the stuff out to change the tire, no. We get a knife out of our pocket. We slash all 4 tires. We torch the car and we leave it on the highway. Mic drop, we out. And the kind of shame that causes us is off the chart. Am I right? And then we're like, oh, I'm a terrible person. I can't stick to anything. See, I did it again. It is so crazy how we behave around food unexamined. I am here to shine the light, my friends. But unexamined, no wonder. No wonder we're trapped in all of this shame and self-hate. Behavior dictates belief. And so if you've behaved that way for many, many, many years, yeah, I get it. And everything's reparable. And we are here to heal. And we're going to heal this right up right now. You can be doing something at 11:56 in the morning. You can be doing something at 11:56 in the morning and be doing something completely different at 11:57, And the thing I'll tell you over and over again, we just never, ever, 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 ever give up on ourselves. So if you're sitting here being like, whoa, this lady's speaking my language, great. Make this decision right now that you're going to try to do it a different way, even if it doesn't work the first 4 times you try it. Because you know what I've seen? I've been an addiction therapist my whole life. Sometimes it's the 5th time. And there we go. And we give up on the 4th time. Sometimes it's the 18th time. You never know. And as I'll tell you 1,000 times, it's all imperfect. I haven't had sugar or flour for 12 years. I mean, imperfectly. There have been moments I have. It's been in stuff. I've taken bites. I've had emotional moments hello, welcome to the human race. Hi, good to see you. Love you. And can I just also say, side note, how fluffin' relaxing it is to not have to be so perfect. And when we get rid of that, we can just bring in so much joy and compassion and kindness to ourselves, to others. This focus on perfect and the perfect goal weight and the whole thing, it's just really not letting us be the people that we're supposed to be in this world. So one of the most important things that we have to get rid of is this slashing of the tires, this metaphoric slashing of the tires. But, if you came to me and we had a session and you're like, Molly, this relationship with food, it's horrible. I don't know what to do. I need help. I need you to help me. And I was like, yeah, I mean, when you slip, just get right back on. I hope you'd be like, that's not going to work for me because I slip all the time. I'm actually never going to make progress if I'm slipping all the time, Molly. I believe you. I'm with you. Because the thing is, in order to really get into a healthy relationship with food, the truth is that you have to be doing healthy things more often than you're not, which means that your focus actually doesn't need to be on the slipping. In my opinion, this is why I don't believe in cheat days. Cheat days don't promote the behavior that we're trying to get you involved in, right? Cheat days make food that's harmful to you, like big and shiny. Like it doesn't allow for you to ever fall in love with the food that you're eating. I mean, I could talk about cheat days all day. But the other reason is that if you're living a big, beautiful life, cheat days happen in and of themselves. Do you know, like cheat days happen. You just don't measure something and you eat too much of it, or, or you just eat too much of it because you're emotional, or you're somewhere and you're like doing the best you can and you have a sandwich. Like, and so in that way, we can't be just like, oh yeah, like you slip, you get right back on. It's an important component of this, but it's not the whole picture. It's almost like this recreating and healing a relationship with food. It's an undertaking. It's one you're totally capable of. Like, I believe in you in my heart and my soul. And I think even just listening to this podcast, you're closer to it. But it takes practice and it takes attention, but it also takes like motivation. And so think about this. Like you're basically training yourself to be like an Olympic athlete when it comes to like this new relationship with food. And like that kind of precision is actually necessary when we're creating a new behavior, when we're creating a change. So could you imagine if you were an Olympic athlete and you woke up in the morning and right before your big race, and you woke up in the morning and you thought to yourself, yeah, I mean, if I get fourth place today, I guess that would be okay. Like that would never work. Because if you're like saying, well, fourth place is okay, you're like not even going to get in the top 10, right? Getting the gold is ideal. It doesn't usually happen, but it's ideal. And so what I really need you to do every single morning when you wake up is say, today I am going to nail it. I am going for the gold, right? I'm going to plan it. I'm going to eat delicious food today. I'm going to meal regulate. I'm going to eat every 4 hours. I'm going to put delicious food in my body. I'm not going to eat those chocolate chip cookies that they're going to have at my office party. Like you wake up and you say, I am going to nail my relationship with food today. It's going for the gold. And because of diet drama and trauma, so often we're like, we won't even put our foot in the ring anymore. We have so much shame around, quote unquote, failing ourselves. That's what this idea of dialectical abstinence is about. Dialectical abstinence means, okay, it means that we're going to be abstaining from the behaviors that harm us, but we're going to be doing it in a dialectical, in a balance, in an and both way. What dialectical abstinence is saying is, I'm going to go for the gold every single day, in every single moment that I'm awake and I am in my own wisdom and I'm tapped into my best self. And when I'm not, I'm going to get right back on, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, and when I'm not going to be slashing tires. I am going to be looking to make the moments in which I am not honoring my best self and doing my best, which living a big life, you cannot be doing your best all the time. You cannot be doing perfectly all the time. And I got to be honest, I almost dialed that back. But like, if you're living a big, beautiful life, you can't even be doing your best sometimes because like emotions get in the way and people die and we lose jobs, and we just like, I wish it was true. And for some of you, it may be true that like the worst things could happen and your food would still be like 1,000% perfect. Like, I'm not in that camp. Usually I'm pretty close to ideal and integrity and self-love. And then sometimes like we're not. But we don't want to get involved in the diet culture of it, which says, well, you're off. Now you're like off, like 24 point font, bold, underlined, italicized, because that comes with consequences. It comes with physical consequences for sure, but it comes with spiritual consequences and it comes with emotional consequences, right? And it comes with giving away our power. And diet culture stolen enough of our power at this point. I mean, we know that for absolute sure and for absolute certain. So it's like, here it is. Step 1, aim for your most ideal, going for the gold self, right? somewhere in the back of your mind, like, yeah, I could probably do this perfectly. We can't do perfectly every single day. Impossible. Have a plan for when things get tricky. We call this harm reduction. Have a plan to reduce the harm, right? My plan for reducing harm is get back on the minute it happens. And I mean, I have other plans for reducing harm, which is like using skills, having people in my power circle I talk to when things get hard, having people in my power circle I talk to before things get hard, ice on the back of my neck. I could talk about this all day, every day. But the most important thing we do, honestly, is after we make a mistake, we get right back to going for the gold. The beautiful thing about this, so aim for goals, have a harm reduction plan when things get tricky, and after you have a hiccup, get right back on moving towards going for the gold. Practice makes progress, and I have to tell you, I'm years down the road, this has become one of the most beautiful rhythms that I've been afforded in my recovery from and my creation of a beautiful relationship with food. Truly from the bottom of my heart, I tell you this. Because what I've learned in this process of, no planned errors, right? But making errors and then coming back to my truth and then coming back to my plan and then coming back to my integrity. It has really made me a more self-forgiving person. It's really made me a more forgiving person and a more compassionate person to myself, towards others, And then the most important thing I really want you to do is this, diet culture. It's like, could I ever stop talking about it? Probably not. But diet culture, because they've made lapsing so moral, that you're a bad person because you lapsed, you're a weak person, or you didn't use enough willpower, or whatever crap they're saying, we've completely lost the ability to learn about ourselves through mistakes. And anybody who's successful in business or relationships or anything will be like, yeah, the time I learn the most about the thing I'm trying to learn about is when I don't do it right, right? We don't see scientists having a hypothesis, that hypothesis not working, and them just shutting down the study and running out, right? They're like, oh, well, what worked about that? What didn't work about that? How can we adjust the hypothesis? And when it comes to creating a really healthy relationship, making mistakes is gold if you let it be. And having compassion in these moments is literally the cure to shame. Empathy and truth telling is the cure to shame. And we live, and I think diet culture has made us have a lot of blind spots about the truth of ourselves. We can get really lost in blind spots when it comes to food and weight, but that's only because it's a shame response. It's a shame response to deny. And so if it's a safe place for you to get really curious when you do things that are not in alignment with what you want to be doing, instead of it being well, I'm a terrible person, and then going and harming yourself more, you're like, hold on. Well, that doesn't make sense. Let me turn on my brain. Let me sprinkle a whole lot of compassion on this moment. And let me get curious. What happened? I have learned so much. I've learned so much about relationships that I'm in that are not healthy for me. I have learned so much about my own vulnerabilities. When I'm really cold, I can't make a decision to save my life. When I'm really thirsty, I'm at high risk for binging. It's so interesting, honestly. This is a gift. And so if you can start to, when a tire goes flat, if you can start to activate yourself to think, okay, number one, compassion, sprinkle it all over. Number two, what just happened? What made me vulnerable? Why did I do that? But don't leave it there. Don't leave it there. It's not just compassion and curiosity, because that's going to have you back in a cycle of self-harm. You know what I mean? Nothing changes unless things change, right? And I love me a corrective action plan. I think it's actually one of the greatest gifts we give ourselves, is to say, oh, okay, so if I'm going out to dinner with Karen, I'm going to bring some other people with me, because she gets me, I'm very vulnerable around her in this moment, right? Or, hey, if it's a really cold day, I'm going to make sure my food is really planned, because all I want to do is just eat all day when I'm really cold or I'm really tired. I'm like very vulnerable. I'm very vulnerable. I have like, I need a lot of emotional sunscreen. Because if we don't make a corrective action plan, then the shame can come back. It's like the problem is that when we've been in diet drama and trauma for as long as many of us have, all our shame needs is a little mustard seed of something to attach itself to. And then it's just like shame city all over our souls. And so when just the idea of creating a corrective action plan and saying, oh, I want to do this differently, I'm going to try it differently. You're probably going to do that imperfectly too, but like intention counts like in such a big way, and asking for help counts in such a big way. And if this corrective action plan doesn't work, being open to trying something different is like an amazing way to do this. It's just about not being willing to say, like, I don't want to do it like this anymore. And I'm willing to try something differently. Again, that's like 15 years of therapy in one action, right? Making a plan to go on a better course next time. Like, I remember this so well. Like, I couldn't get through a Thanksgiving to save my life before I broke up with sugar and just got out of diet culture. I mean, and friends, it was gnarly. Like, there was throwing up involved. There was binge eating involved. There was next day self-harm. I mean, it was gnarly. And I actually remember very well the year that I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it differently. I'm going to try I actually made like a PowerPoint rectification situation for the next year. And I did it imperfectly. I had like 12 things I was going to do. I did like 7 of them. And I'm telling you, like 7 became 8, become 9, and now it's like, you can just go to Thanksgiving. And that's how we change our behavior. So it's a funny thing to say, like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Lapsing happens. Like, it's no big deal. It's a big deal because we don't want to be doing these things that are not in the name of us loving ourselves or not in the name of us taking care of our health. And yet it's inevitable. And that's the hard balance. I mean, that makes my head want to explode. And I've been talking about this for over a decade, right? And in that, I tell you that learning how to be imperfect is super challenging. It's a whole new skill. You'll be shocked to see if you're going to take this on with me. And boy, I hope you do. And I believe in you with my heart, my soul. You're going to be shocked that when you make your first mistake, or when you have your first hiccup, you're going to be shocked to see that your first reaction will probably be like, okay, so like, where's the frozen yogurt? What should I eat now? And I want to tell you something. Step back from it. Step back. Take a breath. Get some ice. Like, do it differently. This is how we create the relationship of our dreams with food. It's like life on life's terms. And yet it's life on life's terms, but moving towards a better life and a beautiful relationship with food and a commitment to self-forgiveness and self-compassion and curiosity. And like, your relationship with food really can parallel your relationship with yourself. And what beautiful concepts to bring in to every relationship that you have in your life. You deserve a big, beautiful life with a loving relationship with food and yourself attached to it. And I am here for it all. Love you to bits.